It ranged between the Omega Lamplighters, which is a youth program. Appreciate that. It was the Omega Lamplighters, which is a youth program under Omega Psi Phi fraternity. We got our first allocation there. I had one allocation for a suicide prevention program, another one for a scholarship for low-income college students, another one for elderly for youth students to essentially teach old people to stop being scammed online so they can understand. Because during the pandemic, everybody was scamming the old folks, right? So they ended up being a different mix there. Also, some money for people that were coming out of prison so that they could transition back into life well, so at least the workforce development part was there. So to me, it was more getting out of the narrative of DeSantis and the nonsense.
No, you right, son, my bad. Give him 90 yards. I told you I had it. What told his mama told me he needed a scholarship. He needed a change in his life. And I'm going to give it to him in Eugene, baby. I'm going to give it to him in Eugene. We're running that out. We're running that out. We're going to the 90 yards. It ain't over till I say it's over. My boy. Welcome to BHM. It's another one. Oh, we coming back. Don't worry. Woo! We're doing this for slavery, for civil rights, for Jim Crow. Hey, Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month to you, BHM. Hey, you ain't even know. Welcome Black History Month. Welcome for Rosa Parks, baby. Sojourner Truth. That's what we dropping. Sojourner Truth all month. I was about to say, we all killing each other.
Did you know they let banks put mortgages on black people in Florida? You don't believe me? Let's check the statutes. See, in 1842, the Florida legislature had a huge problem of people taking loans from banks on the slaves that they owned, not paying on those mortgages, and taking the slaves and running to other states. Now, as we see here in the text, resolution called for a committee of 3 members of the Senate and 5 from the House to be appointed for best means of creating a bill or creating some laws around a way to stop people from running off on the plug, running off with property, as you see, that is owned or mortgaged to the banks. Those banks being the Union Bank of Florida, Southern Life Insurance and Trust Company. So they wanted a list to see who sold or disposed of slaves who were mortgaged to those institutions, respectfully, and the number and appraised value of such slaves. This was signed February 16th, Happy Black History Month, 1842, well, adopted by the House at least. I just never heard of a foreclosed slave, because I would really love to put a mortgage on my iPad, put a mortgage on another piece of property that, people today wouldn't really think of, and that's really why we need these statutes in our schools. I understand people were upset about African American history or AP African American history not being taught or banned in certain states, but I believe that if we teach the statutes in these states,
Welcome to the stream, y'all. Welcome to the stream. Cut this off. Having a good night. I know it's not typical for me to stream politics at 1 a.m. Normally 11 a.m. to lunchtime streamer this week. We're going to be up late a little bit. There's so much news happening. Now, earlier, if you were on Rumble with us,
And we covered the Canadian Prime Minister, President Trump. And, you know, honestly, I felt that was a very bully. We'll get there. But I'm gonna actually start with the Diddy trial tonight to see where we are, getting an update there before we hop. Canadian Prime Minister responded, and maybe a little bit of the FIFA, but also some new court has announcements regarding soldiers in the military, trans soldiers, and also an issue that has come up regarding schools. If you haven't paid attention, there are 2 cases regarding public dollars going to private schools. If we talked about it earlier, below some of the articles there. Also, the Trump budget. Partisan critics, Trump's budget. We'll also go through a little bit of religious charter school. There's a religious charter school getting public resource dollars, highlighting some of the states that it's benefiting, happening. Age verification, social media. Florida actually done some companies. They've actually, I think all the social media companies having to like remove everyone else. Let me fix the vertical. Everyone under 16, 17 from social media. And that's telling, because some minors actually are creating content, whatever it may be, but it's just verifying that this bill, some of the age verification. Actually, we're here now. All right. The fight over a key internal protection for children is clearly. So we have Mike Lee from Utah, James from, to put an onus on apps and Apple and Google Store age verification. So basically, there's nothing stops or tells the App Store or Apple that a minor's downloaded. Right? If you remember years ago, I had a situation where kids, at least 2010, so what it is, they had people basically, kids buying apps, $1, $10 at church, you went to the grocery store, wherever, right? There's never been a barrier for this. So as technology has increased, to a point of, okay, we have these apps, track kids. People are using these apps, pedophile apps, to engage with children, unfortunately. So there's no consent barriers up. So that's a big thing. We'll get into that. People that are here. California plans on conservative folks. My conservative friends love Gavin. Up there, President. And I'm still new to the show. Not there. But look, we'll get into that. But start with Diddy. Let's start with Diddy. See where we are with Diddy. We'll get into some Trump news. We may see some other stuff while we're together on this one. Cut the stream. That's my son. His room. Studio. But either way, if it's your first time here, first time on Hip Hop Live, been doing it 15 years. I started this YouTube channel back in October, November. Slowly grinding, happened after the election. And I realized that there's a lot of misinformation. I want to say, check out that they went to talk about today. This is from the Law and Crime. we'll get information from them or anything. But let me start this up. And let me know if my mic levels are bad or too high, whatever it may be. I saw my levels were kind of jumpy there. But appreciate y'all tapping in. Bring, man.
One of the most high-profile trials in recent memory, Sean Diddy Combs is facing federal charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. And right now, his team and federal prosecutors are trying to figure out which New Yorkers will serve on a jury to determine his guilt or innocence. Who may be ultimately selected to decide one of the most impactful criminal trials in recent years? We're going to break down the big moments that happened today. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law.
I don't care. I don't care where you from. That doesn't look like Diddy to me. Let me know in the chat if these caricatures look like Diddy, because I think whoever did these caricatures probably did Dwayne Wade's state. I don't see. Let me.
On Crime, I'm Jesse Weber.
Get into it. Watch it.
Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. So lawsuits allege that antacid use has been linked to increases in stomach cancer and gastric cancer. If you or a loved one were diagnosed with stomach cancer, the QR code on screen to answer less.
It's never been easier to start a podcast than with Riverside. Here's how it works. First, go to Riverside.
100 potential jurors in the next few days, whittle that number down to about 45 or so, and then the defense and prosecution will use strikes and challenges to get that number down to 12 jurors and 6 alternates. And by the way, in case this is a shocker, this is no easy task for these potential jurors, right? Sitting on one of the most impactful, heavily covered criminal trials in years, currently scheduled for 8 weeks. So we're going to cover what has happened today in the process, who may be selected ultimately for this jury. And this comes as not only Combs has just added another lawyer to his team, while the prosecution objected to another one sitting with him. We're going to talk about that. But this also comes as Combs reportedly said yesterday, he's a little nervous. And that's understandable, because why? He's facing 5 federal charges. The disgraced music mogul is accused of running a criminal enterprise that was allegedly focused on his sexual needs and desires, hiring sex workers, procuring drugs and baby oil, setting up hotel rooms for elaborate sex parties called freak-offs. And we expect multiple alleged victims, including Combs' ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura, to testify that they felt forced or coerced to participate in these sexual episodes. Racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. These are the charges. Potentially life in prison if he's convicted. The stakes couldn't be higher. Now, Combs has been behind bars at the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, since his arrest last fall. He was denied bail multiple times.
This one does look like Diddy. That one does look like a bad boy. Pause.
Sidebar has been closely following this case even before his arrest. Okay, we were covering when he was first hit with the civil lawsuits, but we covered it every step of the way, right? The raids on his properties in Miami and Los Angeles, his arrest, his indictment, the multiple superseding indictments, and all of the pretrial motions along the way. And we will continue to follow this case for you every step of the way, including when opening statements begin, currently scheduled for next week.
This one looks a little better than the, but they also making Diddy really like a sleep, because this don't look like Buddy at the fair with your lady at the fair. Oh yeah, they say, no, we're gonna make him look like a perp for it, because I didn't know Diddy had that much gray hair. I think the jail cell will do it to you. That's a clone.
We're going to cover every second of this. Now, to talk about what happened today, day 2 of jury selection, to talk about today's proceedings, I want to bring in former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani to talk more about this. Nima, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Love having you on to talk about the Sean Combs case. So first of all, the process has been running quite smoothly and efficiently. I mean, do you think they can select a jury this week with opening statements next week? When you told me this, when they told me that jury selection was only going to take a week, I said, no way, it's not going to be able to take a week. But you think it's possible, generally speaking? We'll get into more specifics about what happened today.
Jesse, first of all, love being on, and we're almost there. Next week, I do believe we are going to get a jury selected this week. And I think the reason we are, really, there's two reasons. One, we're in federal court, and we know these federal judges like to move. They're really limited when it comes to what they perceive as for cause challenges. If some of these potential jurors say, hey, I can be fair and impartial, that's good enough for most judges. And they'll say, you know what, counsel, you got to use your peremptory on them. The other reason I think we're moving quickly is because we're having judge voir dire as opposed to attorney voir dire. Attorneys can ask all sorts of questions because, look, let's be honest, Jesse, there's only one person in that courtroom that wants a fair and impartial jury, and that's Judge Subramanian. The lawyers, they're going to want jurors who are favorable for their case. I mean, that they're advocates. That's just the reality of it. So lawyers tend to be a little bit more
What did you say? What? They don't want fair and impartial? They want jurors on their side? Nima, what are you talking about?
Well, leave it.
Here's how I got my team to use Monday Sales CRM and actually like it. Let me start by saying it's so easy to use.
Believe it or not, Jesse, advocates actually want to win. So, they'll ask questions, as trying to get into their political beliefs. And
yeah, I think the hardest thing is, for a second, it's going to be hard for them to choose people that on my stream earlier that don't know Diddy, that don't know something about this case, because that Cassie video went wild, bro. Like, it's all over CNN, if you remember.
Really, we want to.
If you remember, CNN was basically saying that they don't even have a copy of the video no more. So now they're trying to get that thrown out on top of everything else. If they get that thrown out, get the right jury, they basically say this man can get off. Money talks. Or people don't get that option. Or people go to jail for rape and sexual assault and trafficking.
Challenge, and that's why I think the process is moving a lot faster than it would otherwise go.
So let's get into a little bit later on about peremptory challenges and how that's going to work. But right now, as these jurors were brought in for initial questionnaires last week where they filled out all the paperwork, answered questions, now there's individual questioning, and they can be stricken for cause. There's a legitimate reason they can't sit on the jury, whether it's a very unique particular hardship or they're showing some sort of bias. And I have to tell you, Nima, there was a little bit of trouble today, right? You had one prospective juror today who talked about hearing about the Combs case on CNN, admitted that they leaned in a negative light towards him having committed some crimes. That juror was excluded. You had another juror who admitted on the questionnaire, again, that all these prospective jurors had to fill out, that she was a victim of an attempted rape. Reportedly said the cops could have done a lot more. But this juror wrote on the questionnaire that P. Diddy has money and he could buy his way out. And when asked by the court, well, what did you mean by that? She apparently doubled down and said, just what I wrote. She was excused for.
I mean, what are you talking about? We see it every day in America. I've seen it where elected officials, family members, commit crimes that'll put them in jail, but they only go to a substance abuse. Money talks, power talks. This is America. We realize the shit. So, of course, a victim who's on the jury isn't going to side with Diddy. So they're going to have him thrown out. It's going to be this jury selection may take like the Memorial Day, quietly.
Cause. Another juror who has a son that works in the DA's office of Rockland County, New York, conceded they aren't sure if they could be fair and can't promise they wouldn't be biased. Struck for cause. Another juror who admitted they would be biased for law enforcement, struck from this jury. Nima, I gotta say, this is what I anticipated would happen. Now, first of all, credit to these prospective jurors for being honest, or purportedly being honest, but I expected we would have a lot of people that would show a sense of bias in this case.
I think that's right, Jesse. First of all, in any case, there are a lot of people that just want to get off jury duty.
I don't know why.
Right? They get that summons in the mail and they don't want to be there, especially for a 2-month trial. That's going to get a lot of press and not just attention here, international attention. Now, you have some stealth jurors that maybe want to get on this panel and write a book about it and go on the talk show circuit after this is all said and done. But most Americans aren't really excited to serve as jurors. So you'll get folks that will say anything to get off the panel. Now we're talking about a celebrity and we're talking about sexual assault. And we know that a lot of people have been victims of sexual assault or sexual abuse. So this may hit close to home, and they might not be good jurors on this type of case. And like you said, they may be honest about their experience, not because they want to get off the panel, but because this may be triggering, and they may have to relive through trauma that they themselves have experienced or a loved one has experienced because of sexual assault. So those jurors are also getting off. But like you said, this is the type of case that is going to stir up a lot of emotions from a lot of different folks, whether it's race, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's gender and sexual violence, you name it. This case has it.
And look, these are jurors who have to expect to not only know who Sean Combs is, but they're probably been exposed in the last year and a half to material about him. So whether it's the lawsuits, the CNN video, things like that, they've already formed an opinion about it. So aside from the jurors who, by the way, who mentioned or exhibit signs of bias, you also had other jurors who have conflicts or have medical issues that struck them from the jury too. For example, you had one female juror who expressed she has these stomach issues, needs multiple bathroom breaks, struck from the jury. That's not going to work when you have prolonged testimony and maybe not the ability to have multiple bathroom breaks, and is going to be distracted. But we have another issue, another juror, actually, to be more specific, that highlights a key issue in this case. The footage from the LA Intercontinental Hotel of Combs purportedly beating up Cassandra Ventura back in 2016. Key piece of evidence in this case. Combs issued an apology on Instagram when a portion of that video was published by CNN last year. This was before his arrest. And again, we believe this is going to be a key piece of evidence for the prosecution to establish that Ventura, who we believe is victim one in this case, was trying to escape a freak-off, that there was a sex worker in the hotel, i.e., this is evidence of sex trafficking. At least that's the argument.
Tired of manually generating high volumes of critical documents?
To be put forward by the prosecution. Well, what happened? You got a juror today who reportedly told the court, yeah, they saw the video, and despite this juror saying they could be fair in court, saying that in the court today, on the questionnaire that this juror filled out, apparently the juror wrote they were unsure if they could be fair. But the juror said they would listen to the court's instructions on this. Nonetheless, the juror was excluded. But Nima, this tape, so problematic for jury selection, right?
No question, because like you said, typically when you walk into that courtroom, you haven't seen the evidence in the case. But this is not your ordinary case. Everyone has heard about Sean Combs. Everyone has seen that video. It's disturbing. It is offensive. Like you said, he's holding his towel with one hand. He's beating her as she's trying to leave. How can you not form an opinion? So you have jurors that generally have views on these issues. Then they're bringing their preconceived beliefs about the case because they've all seen the video. And this is one of those unicorn type cases that everyone has already heard about, and there's video evidence, and I expect there to be even more video evidence in the case. So whether it's a case like this or Luigi Mangione, we've all seen the video, Brian Koberger with the bathroom selfie, the jurors that walk into that courtroom, they're going to have prejudged the evidence. So if they say that they can't be fair and impartial either in their questionnaire or an open court, it may be hard for the lawyers to rehabilitate them, right? Because if you're a lawyer in the case and you think it's a bad juror for the other side, you're going to want to try to make them seem fair and impartial to force the other side to use one of their peremptories, not get them excused for cause, because, of course, cause challenges are unlimited.
And we're going to talk about peremptory. I promise. Anybody who's interested in it, we're going to get to in a second. But as a former prosecutor, I wonder.
I'll check the chat in a second, y'all. I appreciate everybody tapping in. We got a lot of people on Rumble, YouTube tonight. I appreciate y'all spending some time on this. Right on this pause. Let's check out this Diddy trial, man.
Pre-trial motions to get that tape or a version of that tape or any footage stricken. They didn't want the jurors to see that footage, but a version is going to be shown to them, or multiple versions in different camera angles is going to be shown. But as a prosecutor, do you think that they are like, oh my gosh, I wish that tape didn't come in, we're having trouble finding a jury, or because you're so cynical about jury selection, Nima, do you think the prosecution's like, we're happy that tape came out, and I hope we get jurors who have formed an opinion, they're just not admitting it during jury selection?
I think it's the latter. I get it why you want jurors who haven't seen the video, but it's such a disturbing video. And just you and I have talked about it. If you guys are watching, go back and and watch Jesse's videos when this came out in May of last year. I mean, it's such a powerful video. It was such a powerful video that after denying these allegations for months and months and months, from November 2023 when Cassie filed their lawsuit, Diddy's homes are raided in March, only in May when this video.
Come on. This one I will say looked like. This one looked like Diddy. The first one on the stream did not look like Diddy. This one looks like Diddy. I'll see it.
Months and months and months, from November 2023 when Cassie filed their lawsuit, Diddy's homes are raided in March. Only in May when this video comes out, Diddy issues an apology. That's how powerful the video is. So the cynic in me, if I'm the prosecution, I like to overwhelm the defense, and I like the jurors to basically be on my side before the defense even presents their case. I want them to have made up their minds. And when you have a powerful video like this, if I'm the prosecution, I like it out there. I know it can potentially taint the jury pool. And this is me as an advocate, not for someone who's looking for, the fair and just result. The fair and just result is everyone walks in with a blank slate, right? They view only the evidence in the courtroom. But that's just not the reality in a high-profile case like this. That's why, Jesse, there's always the courtroom, but there's the court of public opinion, and the latter does matter.
And you said it very well. We don't know what other videos might be shown. If you take the defense's perspective, I mean, they made an argument in a pretrial motion that the warrants were invalid in this case because they said if the judge who authorized these warrants, if the magistrate court authorized this warrant, saw all the video footage, they would say, wait a minute, I don't see anything.
Like, bro, let's be for real. Let's be for real for 5 seconds. About to put the poll in the chat. Does this look like Diddy? The caricature we saw like 45 seconds ago on the stream, yes. Does this look like Diddy to y'all? Does this look like a nigga named Robert? Not R. Kelly. He look like a Peter, right? This don't look like no Sean Combs. Maybe that's Sean John. That's not Sean Combs. I'll check.
Illegal here. I think this is all consensual activity, whatever these sex acts that were captured on video. So it'll be interesting to see what is shown and which side it ultimately benefits. But going back to jury selection today, so you had another juror who apparently read an article.
Tell him, why should people join us on May 15th?
Well, if you're a person that is...
How many commercials
about the jury selection process going home from the courthouse yesterday? More specifically, who got excluded from jury service. They were looking to see who got excluded from jury service. Now, the judge today admonished this person, saying they weren't supposed to do that. And apparently, the reporting indicates this might have been a lawyer or someone who was trained as a lawyer. If true, you definitely know you shouldn't do this. The court struck this juror, but Nima, it raises a larger question of how tough is it going to be to make sure whoever's impaneled on this jury doesn't talk about the case, doesn't research the case, isn't affected by the media coverage of it, or who's outside the courthouse. That's why I feel like you need so many alternates.
Let me stop this for a second. That's a great point. And I said it earlier. I know my mic was messed up, but I got to get a new mic, I think, or just get my levels better. So I appreciate y'all's patience. I think the money part is going to be it. Like, if you can afford the best lawyers, which Diddy can, you can sell a couple houses, sell a couple platinum plaques, give Viola or the Wallace family back, Biggie rights. Yeah. There's enough money to pay for this. This is what poor people and average people can't get in America. You cannot afford good lawyers like Diddy to fight the shit up, because the public defender is going to make your ass plea out because he ain't got time for it.
It's really a big problem, Jesse, and technology has just changed the game, right? Back in the day, you weren't getting all your news from your cell phone, right? You have to go home, you got to turn on the TV and watch the news. But we've seen it time and time again, and it's becoming an increasing problem where a juror is Googling about the case, they're on social media, and you're not supposed to bring in those outside facts and evidence into the courtroom. And like you said, a lawyer should absolutely know better. That's not what you're supposed to do. And that's how mistrials happen. So big issue right now. Now, how do you get around it? You sequester the jury. But again, people already don't want to serve as jurors. Now you got to take their cell phones, confiscate them, separate them from their loved ones for 2 months. It's really a big imposition and a burden. So if you're the judge, you're hoping the jurors follow your instructions, whether they're on the panel or potential jurors. So
maybe it's because I'm old. I was in 5th grade when the OJ trial happened, right? And to me, that trial was like a year long. So I always felt, oh, let me pause them. They could be saying something. I always felt these kind of trials, even though it's not murder, I thought there would be at least 6 months to a year, right? 2 months to prove your innocence. Yeah, you got to have a lot of money. You got to have a lot of money to back that up, because guess what? Ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking way, dog. That's how that shit go. Ain't no fucking way, dog.
Made it through day 1 yesterday. And today you had other jurors who made it through. And by that, what I mean is, and to be clear, these are not necessarily jurors who are going to ultimately sit on the jury. They are making up that panel of 45 or so jurors who then both the prosecution and the defense will strike and get down to the number of 12 jurors and 6 alternates. Again, I'll get to that a little bit more. But who made it through today? So you had one juror who made it through that was a student of psychiatry, is at Mount Sinai in surgical pathology, served as an expert witness in medical malpractice cases, indicated his son was beat up and had his cell phone stolen while in college, and was told that the crime was committed by 3 young black men. Both sides agreed, and so did the court not to strike this juror. You have another potential juror who made it through, someone who says they may be an elected officer to a union. His wife, according to him, was molested by a family member. And while he said he saw the CNN video, the Cassie video, and claimed that Diddy looked angry and hostile and entitled, he said he could be fair. You had another juror who claimed that he would lose 30% of his income if he had to serve on an 8-week trial, but indicated he could survive it. Also told the court that his wife is suing his landlord for repairs. It's important to know of any legal issues they may have. And also claimed that he has friends who have been assaulted. That person moving forward. Another potential juror is a security guard, has seen the Cassie tape, found it disturbing, but indicated could be fair. She was let in. We have a child neglect social worker coming in too. We have another juror who was let in over the prosecution's objection, by the way, who claimed that he had negative interactions with the police, including over stolen sneakers, claimed the police didn't look enough into it. Also said on another occasion an officer allegedly pushed him during a house party that was being shut down. So Nima, do you get a sense about what both sides want here in terms of jurors?
I do. Obviously, if you're the defense, you want strong-willed jurors. Ideally, you want someone who's a fan, someone who's skeptical of these types of allegations. This is a gross generalization, but the conventional wisdom in some of these sexual assault cases is you want older.
Real quick for everybody that's on YouTube with me, I just put a poll in there. Do you think Diddy will get off? I have 4 options for you. Let's go ahead and lead this up. I'm gonna lead this up for at least the end of this interview, maybe next 20 minutes. Let's see how many votes we get. Everybody tap in, everybody who's up with me. 1:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. I am a hip hop lobbyist. I'm a professional lobbyist in the state of Florida. I appreciate y'all tapping in as we get an update on the Diddy trial. We're gonna also listen to some Trump stuff and also go through some news tonight since you're up with me. But more than anything, I haven't asked yet. I'm asked now. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel so far. And I'm going to make sure I fix my mic, y'all. So my bad on checking my levels. Hopefully it's getting better. Let me know in the chat, but let's get back to it.
Conservative female jurors, people that would not put themselves in that situation. Those are the types of jurors, whether it's a Weinstein or a Cosby type case, might be skeptical of these allegations. I believe the victims, but there are some people when these types of allegations are raised years, sometimes decades later, they don't believe it, or they say, you know what, you decided to voluntarily, associate with a music mogul like Diddy. You were trying to further your career. You were getting paid. This wasn't something that was forced upon you. This wasn't someone that was coerced. This is not sex trafficking. You did the drugs voluntarily. So there's a certain type of profile that the defense lawyers are going to like. And obviously, if you're the prosecution, you don't want those types of jurors. You want people that are going to kind of go along and someone that's going to be more likely to believe
Appreciate you, Chico.
the consistent testimony of what you believe. There's multiple victims telling the same story.
And Nima, just because somebody has experience with sexual assault or harassment or has negative interactions with law enforcement or is...
Yeah, Scott, I agree with you, man. It's totally different with OJ and Diddy. But being young, you feel me? I was like in 5th grade at the time. So my perception of, if it's a high profile case, gotta be at least a year and a half. But, now I'm older and realize what really holds court cases. But luckily I started talking as this ad started. So let me skip this ad and let's get back to it, y'all.
Compartmentalize and set that episode, set that case apart from this case and decide the case solely based on the facts and evidence in this case, they're not going to be excused for cause. They're going to be at least on that initial panel.
Now, Nima, to be clear again, this is just the potential jury pool. Everyone I mentioned may not even end up being the actual jurors on this case. What can we expect from peremptory challenges, strikes, and also explain to our viewers what those are exactly?
So we're going through the cause challenge process. Those folks that can't be fair and impartial, or they have a hardship, a financial hardship, or a medical hardship that makes it difficult for them to serve 2 months plus deliberations. Often for these longer trials, you can essentially opt out if you can convince the court that you have some reason. It could be family, it could be professional, that prevents you from serving for so long. Okay, so assuming you clear that, you can be fair and impartial. The parties in any type of civil or criminal case, they get a certain number of peremptories. Those are strikes that they can use for any reason, or really no reason at all, as long as it's not a constitutionally prohibited reason, race, religion, and those sorts of things. So once the cause challenges are done and we have that 45 or so, then the parties start using their peremptories. And each case is different. Typically in a federal case, the defense will get 10, the government usually will get 6, but obviously the judge can modify that as well in each particular.
And I'm not a legal expert, I'm just a lobbyist. So don't take it, I don't have a law degree. I know how to change laws, I know how to influence it, I know senators, representatives, I know process, right? That's different from fighting for your life in court. But what I have seen from people I know that have been in federal trials or whatever, they want you to plea out. Because most people, they want to take all your money and dwindle you down. I don't know if they have enough money to prosecute. Because if it gets enough shit thrown out, I think the jury will be forced by the rules they're given to find the man. And, people will forget the bullshit, unfortunately. That's a media machine. I want justice to play out. I'll say that. Not wishing bad, I'm not wishing good. I just want justice to happen. And for the most part, that's what Cassie deserves. Because honestly, with him coming out and putting out that apology, how can you not justify? How do you throw out the video? What are you apologizing for? Because you was out here with Russell Simmons apologizing. Looking for his ass too. But that's not the strength.
Particular case.
Do you think that's going to take a full day? So, for example, let's say they get 45 jurors impaneled by Wednesday. They go to peremptories on Thursday. Should they have a jury selected by Thursday afternoon?
I do. And obviously, the lawyers like to ask all sorts of questions. They'll be going into these jurors' social media, trying to get as much information as they can. The judges asked some of this already. There's a whole industry of jury consultants that do this type of research. They're psychologists. They come, they observe these jurors in the courtroom, how they're dressed, how they're interacting with the court. Are they looking at the defendant? And based on that, they're going to use their strikes on the jurors they think are going to be problematic. And
his background is legit. His background, background is very, not this picture, not the character draws, but the attorney they got.
Jury selection as well, especially
that looks like
peremptory.
Now, putting aside the issue of jury selection, before I let you go, there's another issue I want to talk to you about since we last broadcast our previous sidebar. So first, as Law and Crime's Elizabeth Milner reported to us yesterday, famed celebrity criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos was in court yesterday. And what happened today? The prosecution filed a letter with the court today objecting to this, saying that it appeared the defense was consulting with Mr. Geragos and members of his law firm, but they apparently never filed a notice to appear in the case. They also argue that according to the local rules, a lawyer or firm, quote, associated with the defense can't make out-of-court statements that would interfere with the trial. And they cite how Geragos has been talking about the case as recently as a few days ago on his podcast. Let's start there, Nima. Fair argument. Should he be prevented from talking about this? Should he have to notify his appearance in court?
If he's going to do any legal work in the case, you have to file a notice of appearance. If you're not admitted before the court or the state, you have to have someone do your pro hoc vice application. Now, if he's just there as a jury consultant, they don't obviously need to notice onto the case. They don't have to be lawyers. But if you are doing legal work, you do have to be in the case. And we know the Southern District of New York has some...
If there ain't lawyers in the chat, who up with me at 1:41 in the morning for this stream, how does that make sense? That last part doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'm tripping, because if you're a consultant for a jury, maybe you're not a lawyer. You're not providing advice to the legal team on who should be the best. Come on, man.
Pretty strict local rules when it comes to these out-of-court statements. We've talked about it in the Lively Baldoni case, for instance, came up in the Mayor Eric Adams case. You really got to be careful about what you say. Luigi Mangione in the federal case, you really got to be careful about what you say in the Southern District of New York, because again, those local rules there really are limiting in what you can say out of court if it has the potential of tainting that jury pool.
Yeah, and by the way, one more point about lawyers. So Nima, also, as reported by Elizabeth previously, today we got official word that Nicole Westmoreland is now representing Combs at this trial too. So he already had several attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, Geragos, Brian Steele, expanding the team. What do you make of this?
I think it's important, and we've talked about it time and time again. The person that's going to likely cross-examine these female victims is going to be a female. If you have an overbearing male, it can be problematic. You know, we've seen it with Amber Heard, for instance, right? Camille Vasquez handled that cross-examination. So again, this is conventional wisdom. I'm not saying a man can't cross-examine a woman. I'm just saying what is typically done by the defense bar. So I'm not surprised we're adding some female lawyers. Of course, we know the prosecution team is all female as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, at the time of this recording, they are finishing up day 2 of jury selection.
And that's it for that part. We're going to get to, I'm in that poll in a second. It's going to be interesting to see who this jury selection piece goes down, because that's going to determine how it goes, and the evidence they present. That's going to be a whole other situation. But let's get back to, I think what some people may have missed earlier. If you saw my stream earlier, we saw the president. I'm still new to the streaming thing, so y'all bear with me. I'm trying to get my lips right. There we go. We saw the president and the prime minister basically have their meeting. And the prime minister didn't really get to say too much. So he ended up having a press conference after the fact that he made some remarks that, just loading this up.
Agencies, does this look familiar?
See the ad. Y'all probably hear it in the background. Let me mute it. There we go. Rumble probably saying, get the chat over. Let's check out the prime minister.
That delivers transformational benefits to our economies. We had what I would describe as wide-ranging and, as I said a moment ago, very constructive discussions. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking for
Dr. Phil, I appreciate that. Hey, I appreciate y'all chat. I didn't know that. I had no idea about Dr. Phil being a jury.
Now, while that's going on, in Canada,
didn't know that at all. Thank y'all.
What we can control. Alors, demain, je réunirai avec les premiers ministres pour une appel afin de faire le point sur les conversations que nous avons eues ici aujourd'hui et de discuter du travail qui nous attend. We are going to reinforce our strength at home.
Hey, Lisa, thanks for that info. I did not know that.
For an increasingly dangerous and divided world.
Very good information. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody on the stream tonight with me, man.
And our support for our allies around the world. We'll build an economy that creates jobs, grows incomes, and
I gotta find a better stream for this, because the prime minister, the mic is bad on this one. I can barely hear him, so I know if I could barely hear him, y'all can't hear him. Which one? What y'all think it's gonna be? Vertical video. Where is this shit? That ain't it either. Art Con. That's his name. Better one.
Economy that
Yeah, that's a better mic. There we go.
to our economy.
Let's start them over.
This cabinet that attended, for welcoming me and my colleagues to the White House,
It's a lot better, man.
and for our very constructive discussions. I conveyed to the President today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America.
I ain't gonna hold you. Them police sirens in the background sound just like DC. The second you get out of Reagan, Dulles, even if you fly to Dulles and take the metro in, the one thing you're gonna hear when you get to DC is the motherfucking ambulance and the police sirens. Boy, it don't matter. Somebody getting shot, somebody going to the ER, somebody in a car accident because they cannot drive in that whole city.
When we work together. And really today marked the end of the beginning of a process of the United States and Canada redefining that relationship of working together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect, built on common interests, and that delivers transformational benefits to our economies. We had what I would describe as wide-ranging and, as I said a moment ago, very constructive discussions. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Canada.
Then why come, Mr. Prime Minister? You sat in the Oval Office for 45 minutes. Trump barely gave you 7 minutes to speak. And you didn't even come openly say anything besides, not being a 51st state, to be honest. I saw that trending a little bit earlier. Come on, man. Michael, how you doing? Appreciate you tapping in this stream.
Damascus in Alberta.
Yes.
Now, while that's going on, in Canada, we will focus on what we can control. Alors, demain, je réunirai avec les premiers ministres pour un appel afin de faire le point sur les conversations que nous avons eues ici aujourd'hui et de discuter du travail qui nous attend. We are going to reinforce our strength at home. We will reinforce Canada's security for an increasingly dangerous and divided world. We will transform our border security, our security in the Arctic, and our support for our allies around the world. We'll build an economy that creates jobs, grows incomes, and withstands shocks, with, in fact, the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone. Nous allons bâtir une économie canadienne renouvelée, où tous peuvent réussir dans un monde qui est en train d'être profondément transformé. Nous allons bâtir les infrastructures qui permettront à nos entreprises de rejoindre de nouveaux marchés autour du monde.
Just in case you didn't know that they do speak French and English in Canada. Oh, Canada.
And we can give ourselves far more than any foreign government can ever take away. So now is the time to build, and based on the discussion today, to build at home and to build with our partners abroad, including the United States. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Prime
Before we get to the questions, Mr. Prime Minister Mark Carney, whichever one, Carney, excuse me. Credit. We didn't hear none of that. I don't even think the Canadian people heard it. I'm gonna have to go find a Canadian. Do it on my other laptop, hopefully. If it ever powers up. And see what the Canadian response is to the meeting. Because we know what the Americans just came down here to meet with Trump, but he talked about China and immigrants, talked about fentanyl and everything else. And Bondi had a press conference about that earlier, but come on, man.
Minister will now begin the press conference. We'll begin with questions from the traveling delegation. First question, première question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the President talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through. With respect to the first point, the President has made known his wish about that issue for some time. I've been careful always to distinguish between wish and reality. I was clear there in the Oval Office, as I've been clear throughout on behalf of Canadians, that this is never going to happen. Canada is not for sale. It never will be for sale. Some things, as I said in the room, some things are never for sale. And he agreed with that. Hold on, I distinguish between the two, and then with.
You didn't win that part, Prime Minister. You said your piece. Trump still stayed on it for what it was. We're trying to buy you, bruh, because we're dealing with a situation now where once we talk the immigrant situation out, right? Then it's a fact of Americans, we don't make as much babies as our Hispanic brothers and sisters, right? So we'll need Greenland and Canada. We can keep. That's not this stream, but that's a whole other conversation that we will talk about.
With respect to the importance of reestablishing a constructive relationship for negotiations of a partnership, of an economic and security partnership, which is what we were here for. I look forward, not back, and I think we established a good basis today.
What gives you specifically any indication that the President is willing to renegotiate a new trade deal with you and drop tariffs?
Apart from the fact that he said that he would, is willing to have that negotiation, I think that's the main thing. That doesn't presuppose the outcome of the negotiation. As I've emphasized, it's a complex negotiation. There'll be zigs and zags, difficult aspects to it, but the prospect is there. We discussed it in more detail, and as I said a moment ago, we'll be following up both between officials, but also he and I in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Bon, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Bonjour, M. Carney.
Bonjour, Madame.
Avec quoi ressortez-vous concrètement de cette rencontre avec M. Trump?
Nous avons eu une discussion à travers des sujets géopolitiques et des enjeux qui impliquent les relations commerciales du Canada et des États-Unis.
I'm going to pause with Prime Minister respectfully, even though he's speaking French at the moment. Some of y'all may not be able to translate unless you're here from Canada. I think the demeanor was very well. He carried himself very well. I think some people may look at, and I said on the other stream earlier, they may have seen the Zelensky press conference, and once things get heated, it kept going. JD poked the bear, looked like a fool. Things went from there, but I honestly feel he held his own, but he didn't say enough. Because you let Trump take the narrative, 51st State. It's like Kendrick when he dropped his song right after Family Matters, right? They sit there like, what the fuck? Like, you're letting him just win. There's nothing. UMG bots, whatever. Trump bots, MAGA bots, they're winning. So I would expect, he's a smart man, but it's really saying like, bro, I got to win some of this narrative. Because y'all not going to embarrass me like Zelensky. But the second that press conference kind of turned up a little bit regarding tariffs, Trump shut the shit down. He wasn't going to let that happen. I do feel that maybe some of it is better behind closed doors than in front of the meeting.
Nous avons une trajet concrète. Nous avons eu un échange des perspectives en ce qui concerne les tarifs, les objectifs stratégiques des États-Unis, les objectifs stratégiques du Canada. Et il y a plusieurs enjeux sur lesquels on peut avancer les discussions. Alors, il y a un plan qui existe et une volonté qui existe entre les deux pays d'avancer les discussions, mais il n'y a pas de décision sur n'importe quel tarif aujourd'hui.
Quand il a été question, quand on a posé la question à M. Trump sur les tarifs, s'il avait l'intention, si vous pouviez faire quelque chose pour les lever, pour les supprimer, non.
Comment est-ce que vous l'interprétez?
Ce n'était pas une surprise pour moi. Pas du tout. Non, pas du tout, parce qu'il y a c'est une situation très complexe. Hein. Il y a plusieurs tarifs. Il y a des liens entre les initiatives américaines. Il y a un monde qui est plus dangereux et divisé. Et il y a des liens entre nos relations sécuritaires et nos relations économiques. Alors, il n'y a pas initiative canadienne qui peut changer cette situation. C'est la raison pour laquelle il faut avoir des discussions globales.
Ce que je voulais dire, c'est qu'il faut s'attendre encore à ce que plusieurs mois, dans les prochains mois, ça reste. Là,
on verra. Non, on verra.
Wait, I'm going to go to that's some breaking. Indian Army. Pakistan.
There are quesadillas, and then there's Zaxby's giant chicken finger quesadillas, packed with their famous chicken fingers, cheese.
इस संबंध में 25 अप्रैल को यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल प्रेस वक्तव्य में टीआरएफ के संदर्भ को हटाने के लिए पाकिस्तान के दबाव पर भी ध्यान दिया जाना चाहिए। पहलगाम आतंकवादी हमले की जांच से पाकिस्तान के साथ आतंकवादियों के संपर्क
I ain't gonna hold y'all. Gotta wait for somebody to translate it. I'm gonna have to check Al Jazeera in the morning. Okay, we're gonna have to check Al Jazeera in the morning. I didn't understand none of that. Okay, all I heard was UN in Pakistan. Al Jazeera. We're gonna check Al Jazeera in the morning. Find out. We're gonna update y'all tomorrow. Because it's probably a world war happening. India and Pakistan going on.
No, on verra.
He's still speaking French. India and Pakistan going at it. Ukraine and Russia. Israel, Palestine. The Congo. It's a lot of damn wars going on in the world. Too many.
When talking about the tariffs and talking about a deal, also made very clear that when it comes to autos, his goal is to have car makers make them in the U.S. and for the tariffs to not make any economical sense to be made in Canada anymore. Do you anticipate
I appreciate
lifting tariffs on autos at any point? And what did you tell him in the room about that topic?
Well, we had discussion about all the major issues in the room, so to speak, in the lunch afterwards, including autos, and specifically, without going into the full details, the strategic position of the North American auto industry, or more specifically, the Canadian-U.S. auto industry, versus foreign competition, including from Asia, and how that could be enhanced. I and the Canadian government, and I would say the Canadian auto industry, I would actually say the auto industry as a whole, is of the view that Canada, the Canadian auto workers, Canadian auto companies, Canadian parts companies, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, all play an important role in enhancing the competitiveness of American auto companies. So we will continue to press that case and look for an arrangement that takes full advantage of it for the benefit of the United States, but of course, from our perspective, very much for the benefit of Canada.
And what did he ask you about China in your closed-door meetings, and what did you tell him?
That's why they're closed door. Well, yeah. We had a wide-ranging discussion.
Next question, prochaine question.
Bonjour, M. Carney. Michel Sabat, la presse canadienne. Je vais essayer de faire du chemin sur la question de ma collègue Mélanie un peu plus tôt. Est-ce que vous repartez...
On a fait de progrès. Nous avons eu des échanges. Il y a un processus et le fin. At an end to a negotiation. And, I mean, to summarize, look, et pas nécessairement de progrès qui est apparent pendant les négociations.
Nico asked a good question. I'm going to pose this one.
In English, I mean, to summarize, look, in a negotiation, you don't get like little elements of it. You get an end to a negotiation. We're having a very complex negotiation about a wide range of issues. And it's, as I said before I came here, I wouldn't have expected white smoke coming out of this meeting. That was not my expectation, that because of the nature of the negotiation. So you don't expect to have specific progress as things move along, even when you're making progress, because it's a global, that's why it's a global negotiation.
Parlant de l'Alberta, que pensez-vous?
Hold on, I'm going to address the chat real quick. I haven't looked at the chat and or at least read through it. So let me get to it. You think Trump will ever find out what the Congo is? No, but for some odd reason, I noticed this in his last couple of press conferences where he talks about immigrants. He just says Africa, as if the continent of Africa doesn't have 50 plus countries. Where are the immigrants coming in from Africa? Because, excuse me for cussing, bitch, we're not going across the Bering Strait. We're not swimming across that anymore. Maybe they're coming from DR, Espanol, or they call it Haiti. You know, it's all the same island. Cuba, Jamaica. That's an easier swim than Africa. Ain't no way. But let me get back to this chat. Hold on one second. My pleasure, Edgar. Appreciate y'all. Everybody knows it's on the right. Hilarious. Drake is a sucker. K-Dot is a boogeyman. Got nothing to do with tariffs. Well, shit, technically Trump will be K-Dot and these tariffs will be everything K-Dot dropped last summer, man. It's been a year to the damn near a week since that shit happened. It's just kind of funny that this happened at the same time to me. But you know, that's not this stream. It could be though. Yet they choose to surrender every opportunity. Read that. I think we kind of caught up. I mean, start this back up before we get to the rest of the news. Hold on. Click over. I be seeing DJ Academics do this shit and other streamers. This shit's good.
De l'idée de Daniel Smith d'encourager la tenue d'un référendum
Watching the chat,
sur la
I'm
souveraineté
moving around. I'm doing this solo, no team, man. Let's do it, man. Make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Le Canada est plus fort que quand nous travaillons ensemble, comme together. As an Albertan, I firmly believe that you can always ask a question, but I know what I would respond clearly.
Prochaine question, next question.
Bonjour, M. Carney, Olivier Ferrand-Boissé de TVA. Est-ce que M. Trump vous a convaincu qu'il voulait bel et bien renégocier l'accord de libre-échange parce que ça semblait pas clair?
La laine. OK.
Vous aviez dit à plusieurs reprises.
Jour par jour.
Do you feel better or worse about Canada-U.S. relations after meeting with the president today?
Look, it was a very constructive meeting. I feel better about the relations in the sense of, in many respects, one, the posture, if I can put it that way, or the positioning the president took.
Oh yeah, academics is.
Secondly, the breadth of discussion and how concrete the discussions were. These are the discussions you have when you're looking to find solutions as opposed to laying down terms, if you will. So feel better about that. And I would add one other thing, which maybe isn't as obvious, so I should say it, which is that we also discussed a number of issues globally, geostrategically, if I can put it that way, where we have common interests, common concerns, and that, of course, is a sign of a broader and very healthy, or a healthy relationship. Look, we have, JP, we have a lot more work to do. I'm not trying to suggest, at any respect, that we can have one meeting and everything's changed. But now we are engaged, and very fully engaged.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Ashley Burke, CBC News. What specifically did you say to President Trump about lifting tariffs on Canada? And based on your conversations, what do you think it would take to get those tariffs lifted, and how long could it?
Getting the tariffs lifted would be like, again, Kendrick, Trump, Drake, Prime Minister Carney, would be like UMG removing Drake's house off the damn label of the day. He didn't do nothing to remove the tariffs. Unless something happened in the next week. Trump said he got a major announcement next week. Maybe it's taking the tariffs off before that conversation. But I don't see what the Prime Minister did.
it take?
Well, I can't answer the second part of your question because we don't make that decision. But certainly press the case in a number of areas where we think the tariff should be lifted. And specifically, I'll give an example with respect to the scourge of fentanyl and the efforts, the considerable efforts that have been made at our border and behind the border in terms of raids as well. Huge investments in border personnel, in drone surveillance, Black Hawk surveillance, and then those are being reinforced, as you would have seen during the campaign, commitments to another 2,000 in effect. 1,000 border guards through CBSA, another 1,000 RCMP, further efforts there. And what we're seeing is huge results for this. Canada's contribution to this problem, cross-border problem, was always very small, but it's down by over 90% with the efforts. And it is an absolute focus of the government. So that is an example of where we would see the case being very strong for the tariffs to be removed. We've made that case. We'll see where that goes. In other areas, the tariffs are, in our view, not in the interests of American competitiveness and jobs. We have more work to do on making those cases on that. Thank you. Pardon? Maintenant.
Hey, don't get me twisted. When I was at Florida A&M University, I took 2 years. Beautiful language. Love it. Went to Paris. And the best thing and only thing I can remember today, I'll be honest with that. Till time is it? That and Menage a Trois. The best set of French I still remember outside of we. Appreciate y'all for tapping into the stream. Now, if you're here for the first time, let me pause the Prime Minister. He could be speaking English. I am the hip hop lobbyist. We're just watching some, getting some other stuff. I can't sleep tonight. I'm a gamer, but normally I'm up playing a game, Call of Duty, whatever it may be, right? FIFA. But I said, we had a great vibe earlier. Let me bring it back. We're going to talk about some tariff stuff and everything else. Almost up, got like 3 minutes left, but hopefully the Prime Minister speaking some English. So my U.S. friend is, I don't understand French. I know you probably sitting here like, bro, what is he saying? And I don't want to help translate for you.
Les tarifs de fentanyl est très fort.
But many Canadians are offended and deeply angered by the fact that he keeps repeating this comment. So have you asked the president to stop calling Canada the 51st state?
Yes. Today.
Okay, specifically, what did you ask him?
Exactly what you just said.
But what words did you use? How did you ask him?
Look, I gave you an answer. Do you have a follow-up?
He's bullshitting. I've been around politicians 15 years. If he ain't say it in front of them cameras, he ain't say it in front of them. If you go back and watch it, I'm sorry for over talking. I know y'all came to see this, not me talk, right? Nah, bruh. Body language wasn't there, my dog. I ain't gonna hold you. It wasn't there.
No.
It wasn't there.
What was his answer?
Well, we'll look. I don't know. He's the president. He's his own person. I would go back to showing the difference between a wish and a reality. We're very clear. I've been very clear publicly, consistently. I've been very clear in private. I was clear again in the Oval Office. Would be clear throughout. The president. He understands that we're having a negotiation between sovereign nations and that we will only pursue and accept a deal that's in the best interests of Canada, not just in the short term, but in the medium and long term for Canada.
That's not saying too much, because I don't think that we're going to buy Canada, but I do think that essentially things will change.
Testifying before the House of
I'm going to switch over here. We're going to get into the news. Of course, I'm still up. We'll probably do this for like another 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. You never know. We could have till 6 in the morning if you tapped in with your boy. The U.S. to meet with China over the trade wars. Now, the biggest thing, my ladies out there that have been ordering from Temu, and I know you on the stream tonight with me. Prices don't. You didn't think that the tariffs would impact you like if they're going to pass it on to customers. You were thinking that $1.55, whatever blouse that you got coming in, even those $7 TVs and monitors and everything, so cheap. This is before they talked about the manufacturer. warehouse stuff on TikTok a couple weeks ago, right? I know my young ladies in the urban community, right? I don't know if they're putting tariffs on the weaves and the wigs. That could be made here in America for, but they're feeling it. However, I think that these 145% tariffs are going to end because Trump highlighted it earlier with his conversation with the prime minister. So I'm saying, like, 45-minute interview. He's in the Oval Office. They didn't talk about a lot of the tariff stuff. Canada, they talked about what China's had the 145% tariff, and right now ships are going back and forth. They're sending them out. We have a lot of the Chinese economy on with our economy. I'm saying it's working. I'm not saying it's working. I'm saying it's making a fucking impact. But either way, let's get into this piece about the U.S. supposed meeting with China. It's only like 5 minutes. Transition to something else after that. But I appreciate y'all tapping in for this. I'm not even going to do what we're close to 1,000. Started off this channel with 47 subs randomly, right? And we've been growing organically. I have a nice following of politicians and other folks. I didn't tell nobody about y'all. So if you can help me reach a set, appreciate y'all. I don't have something special to give you, but I will eventually. But right now, let's just.
Appropriations Committee Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says progress is being made on foreign trade talks, but not with China.
There are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet.
His comments come after President Trump told NBC's Meet the Press that, quote, at some point I'm going to lower them because otherwise you could never do business with them, and they want to do business very much. The current tariff rate on Chinese imports is 145%. Last week, China's Commerce Ministry says it's assessing whether it wants to begin negotiations with the U.S. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us now. I feel like every day we're sort of doing the will they, won't they. Is damage already done, though?
I think for many, yes, especially small businesses. I mean, we've talked to a lot of small businesses. I don't care what industry. They're just getting their first invoice that has that tariff, surcharge, if you will, especially if you're ordering from China. And a lot of them are saying this is costing me thousands or maybe even, near $1 million, depending on how much inventory they're bringing in. And they're saying, I'm just not going to be able to handle this. The other thing that I will mention, though, this just broke within the last half hour. We are learning that Treasury Secretary Bessent will be meeting with China's lead economic representative in Geneva this Thursday, May 8th. So that, I think, will at least give some investors hope that maybe, we heard from him earlier today, nothing's happening. It now looks like something is happening. But back to your point, you have these businesses that are planning for the future, and they can't really wait for whenever that deal ends up getting done.
And we spoke to one last week who said, I thought being an entrepreneur was the American dream, and it's turning into a nightmare. It was just a quote that stuck with me. So,
listen, being an entrepreneur ain't for the faint of heart. I'm going to tell you that now. It ain't for the faint of heart. If you want to survive out here in these streets, I'm telling you now, you better make a YouTube channel. Because you can go out here and get clients and contracts, and guess what? When these motherfuckers don't pay, that's entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is what you can't do to the creditors. Run off on the damn plug.
Tuesday, the UK and India agreed to a bilateral agreement. India agreeing to gradually lower import taxes on goods from the UK. The British government actually says the vast majority of products will be, quote, fully tariff-free within a decade. How significant is that? I mean, is President Trump's policies sort of making the whole world look at their own trade policies? And, I mean, is that good for global trade?
It's interesting because I think, yes, some in good ways and some in bad ways. I mean, I take heart from this, that India does seem willing to negotiate. And if there is a good deal, they will bring down those barriers. That is, of course, something that President Trump is looking for within his own negotiations. But there's also this element that our trade policy, the change in trade policy as the U.S. is spurring some of our allies to come together and think about, well, if we are not going to have as much access to the U.S. markets, we need to strengthen ties between each other. That's also something that we have seen with the Asian countries as well. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this plays out.
I didn't think of that. New data shows the U.S. trade deficit reached a record high in March. So that measures the gap between what the U.S. sells overseas against what it buys. The spike was, of course, led by imports as companies are really stockpiling ahead of these tariffs taking effect. What products led to the surge?
Okay, so pharmaceuticals was a big one because, of course, we are hearing that there could potentially be tariffs on that sector in the future. Also, cars and car parts getting ahead of that deadline, as well as computer accessories and electronics. What I will note, though, is that that was sort of backward looking. That was March data. I was just looking at the week over week data. We have seen a drop in imports from China in particular. 43% versus last week. That tells you that people stockpiled, companies stockpiled ahead of that deadline. And we're also hearing that a lot of companies are canceling their orders because they're saying, well, I'm just not going to pay that 145% tariff.
That doesn't make financial sense for me. All right, the Fed meeting. What are you? We know they're expected to leave interest rates unchanged, but what are you going to be listening for? When Jerome Powell speaks and the markets listen and you speak Jerome Powell in ways that I don't, what are you going to be listening for?
I guess I speak nerd. I am going to be looking for how they walk the tightrope between potentially higher inflation and potentially slowing economic growth, right? Because you put those.
Basically, they're saying that the stock market finna jump tomorrow if you on the right side of those calls or those puts. You better get in that pre-market before that Fed meeting because something's going to flip. That's basically what I'm hearing. But I'm no expert. Don't take my advice and invest and come after me when the shit don't work. I am not a licensed broker, but I'm telling you now, some shit about to flip tomorrow.
Those two things together, and that is stagflation. I want to hear how worried he is about slowing growth after we had that negative quarter of GDP.
And what would he use the word worry? I mean, he uses the word uncertainty.
He uses the word uncertainty. He uses the word concern. I think I want to hear from him slowing consumer sentiment. Are you seeing that translate into the hard data? And when will you act? What is going to be the thing that makes you cut interest rates or raise them potentially with higher inflation?
Kelly.
That was a good little piece by CBS News. I always thought CBS, out of all the ones, always unbiased. Now, I'll be real with you. I do not watch CNN like that. I barely, if anything, watch see. Fox News I'll give light of day because you got to hear what the opposite got to say. But that's just, it is what it is. But this next one, y'all, we are going, oh, is this not updating? Did I update it on screen? We're going to hear about the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, I want to say today, well, Tuesday, if y'all haven't been asleep yet, you know, if I don't sleep, I still count the days I'm still up the same damn, right? So it could be Monday, it's Wednesday, shit, it's still Monday, right? Either way, crazy. The Supreme Court realized that, or announced that they've cleared the way for Trump to basically ban transgender individuals from the military. Now, you can feel any kind of way about this. I've shared it here, I believe, before. I have a friend of mine that's trans. I didn't realize they were trans until about 7-8 years ago, but I've known them as the person they were, so I've kind of changed my mindset on it, right? So that's helped me grow personally, professionally, understand and accept not only the LGBTQ movement, but understand where we are, but also realizing that collectively, realistically, a lot of people aren't comfortable with their tax dollars going towards people who decide as a grown-up that they want to change their sex, right? So during Trump's first term, if you remember, there was an issue where people were in the military getting the sex changes. And then the cost of that was a burden on the taxpayer government, well, the military budget, right? So they've been edging at this like 8 years. Now the Supreme Court finally got to a point of banning folks in the military. I'll say this respectfully. If you decide to change your sex, but you want to put your life on the line for this country, it doesn't matter. Because I've sat down with Republicans, Air Force pilots, Marines, Navy, Green Berets. When you in the foxhole, it don't matter if you black, white, male, female. We got to get out of here. So I do think that if a transgender person wants to serve this country and put their life on the line, let them. But I do feel that there's a fine line, right? There's a fine line, not like sports. I think there's a fine line of, are you coming in this way or are you transitioning while you're here? Because the medicine you're going to need and everything else is something totally different. But I've been talking too much. Let's get into the video. Real quick, I have a TED Talk, so I'm a little long with it. My apologies if I'm rambling. Appreciate y'all tapping. But 2:21 on the East Coast.
We have breaking news. The Supreme Court has lifted a temporary nationwide injunction that had blocked the Trump administration from banning transgender people from serving in the military. The nation's highest court ruled along party lines 6-3 to reinstate the ban while the litigation continues in lower court. This was one of the first actions taken by the president following the start of his second term. A district court judge blocked the policy, calling it, quote, de facto blanket prohibition on transgender service. The court's 3 liberal judges said they would have kept the policy on hold. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson joins us now. She's a professor at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Jessica, break down this decision for us. What more do we know?
I think you were very clear in the sense of this is about the Supreme Court saying that injunction can be lifted, meaning the ban can be implemented for now. This is not the Supreme Court having heard robust oral arguments, having received briefing. The Supreme Court is not ruling on, in brief, the merits. The Supreme Court is just ruling on whether or not the ban on the ban, meaning the injunction, could stay in place while this case plays out. And the court here, 6-3, apparently along ideological lines, is saying that that ban can be implemented while the case continues to play out. We should also note that there's another case in D.C. where a district court judge implemented a preliminary injunction. The appellate court in that case, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, is hearing arguments about whether or not that should become a permanent injunction. So I just want people to know this isn't the final word on this particular executive order.
And so you mentioned as this plays out in the lower court, what does that look like?
So it looks like hearing arguments on the substance of whether or not it, for instance, violates the Constitution to say that transgender people cannot openly serve in the military. Those who are critical of this executive action have said that that amounts to discrimination that violates the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Others, like the Trump administration, have argued that transgender members of the military create threats in the military, that they could undermine the ability of the military to do its job, and that judges owe the executive branch deference when it comes to military decisions.
So there are more than 1.
What do y'all think about that, Chet? Do you think transgender people serving in the military put us at harm? I've never thought about it or heard it that way. Also, I think that's the biggest thing. I haven't served. I have family that served E7s, E6s in the Air Force, in the Army, in the Navy. My neighbors, things of that nature. But I'll say this. I'm a man. I know what it's like to be a black man. I know what it's like to be a lobbyist, work in politics, pass a law to change the law, but I've never been transgender. I don't know what it's like to live that life. I've never been in the military. So at least someone who is in this dialect of this triatype of in this thing with me tonight at 2 a.m. If you're any of these dialects, break it down with me. Let me know where we at. Where the impact of how it makes us unsafe. That's what I want to know. More than anything. Appreciate y'all tapping in with you.
0.2 million active duty members of the military, according to the Defense Department. A defense official said as of December 9th, there were about 4,200 troops diagnosed with gender dysphoria. The president, Jessica, banned transgender people from serving in the military during his first term. The Supreme Court allowed that to take effect in 2019. The Biden administration reversed that policy. Should we take anything from that precedent from the high court, knowing this is still being litigated?
So yes and no, in the sense that my understanding is that this ban is broader and more extensive than the ban during the first Trump administration. So it certainly gives us some indication about the court's thinking. Certainly the fact that the court allowed the ban to go into effect by lifting this nationwide injunction gives us some indication of the court's thinking. But it's a very different question as to whether or not an injunction can be lifted versus ruling on the merits. So do we have tea leaves? We do. Do we have a final answer? We don't.
And so you and I have been talking at great length about the difference between the role of Congress and executive action here. How does that issue play into something like this as significant as a ban on who can serve in our military?
That's a great question. And you and I have talked, I think, just a few hours ago about when the president needs to work with Congress, when the president can act alone. And I would say when it comes to military affairs, obviously the president is the commander in chief. And when it comes to who can serve in the military, I would offer that the executive branch does get broader latitude. This is not a situation, and I think your question is a good one, about
I appreciate that, Michael.
This is not a situation where the Constitution says you
hold on, but everybody leaning in support of people that supporting you, right? Nicholas says he's very racist. I'm very racist. You know, I get it. I think there are a lot of racist people in the world. But I appreciate the racists tapping in for the stream earlier. Somebody called me the N-word on my show. Wasn't offended. Not a trigger for me. But it's okay. I appreciate you, Nicholas. Michael, the initial cost of transgender surgery is not the issue. The issue comes down to operational, not served by personnel whose attendance of hospitals. Good point. What is it like to be a black man? Great point, Alex. I don't know if that's this. I don't know if that's this one. It's not as bad as it may be on your upbringing. You have parents that actually care about you, but there is a sense of fear instilled in you that you have to, if you see a police officer, you're driving, both hands on the wheel. There are things that you're taught that if you're going to school, you can't. I was taught, can't act like my other counterparts. I have to be studious. I have to work harder. I have to show myself a lot more in favorable ways, make other people comfortable with more a fact of, not less than. It's a fact of you always on edge. In your head. That's some parts though. But I know some black men that don't have that story. Some have excellent stories, and race and all other shit is what it is, right? But appreciate you, Alex, tapping in with India bomb Pakistan. What's your opinion? Future Gamer, I actually was talking about that earlier. I actually go to that because I was watching, I guess, the Indian response, someone in India talking about it, but I didn't understand what was happening. So I didn't want to try to translate something and not know what's there. So we're going to go to Al Jazeera, but and actually saw something on my other computer about the bombing. So we may show that after. But Alex, I appreciate you. Well, sorry, not Alex, but Future Gamer. What's it like? Imagine what it's like being, but I imagine it's like being a white man, black skin. I guess so. Snapshot, you a hoe. Appreciate your business account. I think, weren't you here earlier? I'm a racist motherfucker. Isn't that what it's all about? Yeah, I don't know what we talk about, John. Let's get back into this. I got a little sidetracked with that. And no, we still got a good poll going. Let's go, man. Appreciate y'all tapping in with your boy at 2 a.m.
Must work with Congress because we're talking about appropriations. Having said that, this is absolutely a situation where you could see legislation, and legislation typically stands on firmer grounds than an executive action.
Okay, Jessica Levinson, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Let's go to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, busy day on your beat. What can you tell us?
About the Houthis? Is that what we're referring to?
This is about, I know, that's why I'm saying this is a busy day in your beat. We'll talk the Houthis in a second and that news that the president made in the Oval Office, but I do want to ask you about the Supreme Court saying that the ban, essentially the hold on President Trump's ban on transgender troops serving in the military can be lifted while this plays out in the lower court. What kind of reverberations is that going to have at the Pentagon?
Well, you know, Secretary Hegseth has been arguing for some time. In fact, he was a sort of catalyst to stop transgender service members from serving. And that was sort of with immediate effect. And he sort of put it down on the branches of the military to put that into effect. And the Army was the first to do that, essentially giving transgender individuals an opportunity to stop doing what they were doing and serving. A number of people that I spoke to have done just that. And the argument here is that the transgender community represents such a minuscule fraction of U.S. service members across the board that it shouldn't have an impact on operations or military readiness going forward. So there has been a pushback on both sides of this. There, you know, when the executive order first came out, it was very specific about what kind of individuals might be able to bypass that, but it had to do with dysmorphia, and it got a little bit technical as far as how that was concerned. So, you know, this has been an ongoing back and forth. But as far as the defense secretary is concerned, and he does make the rules, and
I appreciate you tapping in for the chat tonight, the stream tonight. It's not customary for me to start streaming at 1 a.m. Mike, I appreciate you and everyone else who's tapped in with the stream tonight. I'm gonna have a couple more videos, a couple more things, and I'm gonna get ready to get my ass to bed, because guess what? My son's gonna be up at 6:30. 4 hours, and I gotta take him to daycare by 8:39. So we're gonna do this for a little bit of time, but make sure y'all tap in. Make sure you. I don't know if we had 1,000 yet, but if you're here right now, you want to subscribe to the channel, you want the vibes, go ahead, subscribe, man.
He will stick by them. He will be against transgender individuals serving, even as this is going on.
Okay, Charlie, stand by. We will revisit the other topic.
I think we've had enough of this, to be honest, because the transgender in the military thing is not new, right? It's not a new issue, and it's a controversial issue that we've seen play out with sports, the Olympics last year, and the military. And I'm praying for my transgender brothers and sisters out here who are really scared for their life. I had a call earlier, the Human Rights Campaign. I used to give to them $5 a month a couple years ago. They called me back and said, you know what, hey, we're scared. We have people and members. And I'm like, yeah, I know my $5 ain't going to really make that big of an impact for real, right? Because I know that y'all is just going to profit and pimp it out and run campaign money with it, right? That's all it is. But I really do feel bad for my LGBTQ folks out there who are uncomfortable right now, right? Because they feel attacked. I don't know what to say to make you feel better. I'm not going to sit here and placate the bullshit. I don't know. I do know that it wasn't as bad the first 4 years. I don't think it's going to be bad these next 4 years.
All your SEO in one tab.
Let's get through these. I'm gonna pay for you
a tool to find
winning
winning
they give me a whole
keywords.
commercial? Hell no, they give me the whole commercial. Hold on. Had to get to the skip. Now we're gonna real quick, because somebody mentioned it earlier on the stream and we were watching it. We're gonna have a little bit of update on this India Pakistan situation, and I'm gonna grab some water. Your boy's a little thirsty, but make sure y'all tap in. I appreciate everybody tapping in for the stream. I've been talking too much. Let's get back to it.
We begin with breaking news. India's military says it's hit 9 targets in Pakistan and in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. 3 people have been killed, over a dozen wounded. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says this was an act of war and his country has the right to respond. And a state of emergency has been declared in the Pakistani province of Punjab. The Indian army says they targeted what they describe as terrorist infrastructure and that no Pakistani military sites were hit. Tensions across the line of control have been elevated after an attack by gunmen in Indian-administered Kashmir 2 weeks ago, in which 26 people were killed. Kamal Haider joins us on the line from Islamabad now. Kamal, what more can you tell us about these attacks and any ongoing developments?
Well, these attacks took place at 3 different locations. One is in Bahawalpur, that is in the Punjab province, and 2 locations in Pakistani-administered Kashmir, one at Kotli and the other at Muzaffarabad, which is the capital of Pakistani-administered Kashmir. We're also getting reports that at least 2 Indian fighter jets, including a Rafale and a Su-30 have been shot down. Pakistan has also said that none of its aircrafts have been damaged or shot down in any incident, and that Pakistan is right now responding with a befitting response, according to the Pakistani military sources, at several locations across the line of control and across the border in India. So it is indeed a evolving situation, but Pakistan is now confirming that it is already carrying out reprisal attacks against the Indian incursions or the Indian missile attacks, which targeted a religious seminary in Bahawalpur, in which at least one child has been killed, a number of people are wounded. We still haven't received any reports about casualties in the Pakistani-administered Kashmir, but this is indeed a dangerous escalation, given the fact that Pakistan had said that it wanted concrete evidence, that it was minutes after that attack. And
I'll mute this for a second. This is why, because it's happening here in Pakistan, India. This is happening, but it looks just like Gaza, right? And these countries, you're right, the countries have been fighting for decades. These are wars and situations that America, we can't just come in and try to fix this. This isn't our fight. And I hate to say it, we talk about peace on earth. When in our lifetime will there be peace on earth? Because it seems as if, dating myself, respectfully, when 9/11 happened, that's one of the only times I've seen the entire world have peace, because everybody felt sorrow for that attack. I haven't seen it since. Let's get back to our hurricanes. That's really about it. But let's turn this back up.
We've been building up to this moment for a while now. For several days, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held several high-level security meetings, including as recently with his Defense Secretary and with the Air Force and Navy chiefs. And overnight, the Indian government announcing that it's carried out strikes on what
Hold on. Somebody in the chat says, "The happy Diwali to Pakistan. No civilians or military harmed." Okay, yeah, I guess that's good to know. Got to double check that. I'll check Al Jazeera in the morning. I appreciate y'all tapping in. Anybody here in overseas right now in Pakistan and these places of the world that are being bombed? We had some people in Australia, in London, and some parts of Africa here the other night. So I just want to see if anybody here is from any part of the other world besides the U.S.
Justice has been served, but as Kamal was saying, we're also seeing heavy trading of fire along that de facto border in the region of Kashmir. Both sides now exchanging fire there. We've seen ceasefire violations along that border for 12 nights in a row. This would be the 13th night, but we're hearing that there's a significant escalation in what that trading of fire looks like. The Indian Union ministers have been posting about this operation, which the Indian government has dubbed as Operation Sindoor. And what's also interesting is the timing of this response, because as the country wakes up on Wednesday, we're going to see northern and western states across India holding mock civil defense drills. These were geared at ensuring that civilians are prepared in the event of a quote hostile attack on India. This would have seen factories and key infrastructure being covered, blackout drills being carried out, as well as training of school and university students, something we've not seen in nearly 5 decades since the last time that India and Pakistan saw hostilities at this level. But a lot of experts I've been speaking to are also pointing to what we're now
John, I agree with you.
Coming in from Washington, D.C., where U.S. President Donald Trump has said that...
John, I completely agree with you, man. If they have everything they need to set this world on fire. We don't need to be a part of none of this. Hopefully they can find peace in that Middle East.
You know, as the day progresses, I'm sure we'll see more reaction coming in from other world leaders as well.
Yeah, and just mentioning the US there, reports coming into us now that India's National Security Advisor has spoken with US Secretary of State after these strikes. I just wonder what you believe the US's role in this could be. You said there hasn't been any public condemnation of these strikes, but you know, what could they be? What could their involvement be?
You know, this attack happened when US Vice President J.D. Vance was here in India, touring the country with his family, holding trade talks with the Narendra Modi government. And we saw the sort of condemnation that came in very quickly from Washington, D.C. But what was interesting was, you know, the calls for restraint that followed soon after. Many experts have been speaking to, drawing comparisons to how the US dealt with a similar situation in 2019 when 40 Indian soldiers were killed in a terror strike in Indian-administered Kashmir. And back then, the US had very publicly called out Pakistan, criticized its role in backing terror groups that operate on its soil, and had, you know, justified India's action, which was to similarly carry out airstrikes in Pakistan, something that Islamabad responded to with air raids as well. And that incident saw diplomatic ties between the nuclear-armed neighbors plummet. But this is a new low. New Delhi would have briefed the US, given that it's a key ally in the Indo-Pacific. And
Real quick. How many of y'all have been saying Qatar instead of saying Qatar? Because I know a lot of people have been saying Qatar for a long time, and they just now started saying Qatar.
in the event a military strike was carried out by New Delhi.
Okay, and we have Pakistan's foreign ministry in, quote, strongly condemning India's actions. In terms of India and Pakistan both being nuclear powers, of course, is there any concern within India that this could escalate out of control?
You know, New Delhi's position has been that it's well within its right to respond to what it said were cross-border links to that terror attack in Indian-administered Kashmir that killed 26 people. We've heard from Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the last few days where he said that his government would hunt down perpetrators and their backers, a tacit reference to Pakistan, to the very ends of the earth. This was a statement that the country's defense minister echoed this week as well, saying that his government is working to try and ensure justice is delivered for that terror attack. But, you know, as all of this was happening, you also had the government announcing those civil defense drills that I was telling you about earlier. This is not something we've seen in you know, more than 5 decades, and that tells you how significant the risk of escalation is this time around. Compared to 2019, experts say that, you know, India and Pakistan have both ramped up you know, what their military capabilities look like. We're talking about 2 nuclear-armed neighbors who fought 3 wars in the past as well. And this time around, apart from, of course, the military strike that India has now carried out, that Pakistan claims it's responding to as well, we've also seen India crucially suspend a key water-sharing agreement that has been in place since 1960. This week, India began restricting water flows of the western rivers as part of that Indus Water Treaty towards Pakistan, something Islamabad has called an act of war. So we've seen India take that step as well, you know, something that hasn't happened despite various moments of conflict between these 2 bitter South Asian rivals. But, you know, for now, this is the most serious escalation in ties we've seen in several decades between the 2 countries.
Listen, let's go past this ad. How much is YouTube a month? Like $10?
Yeah, and in terms of that attack, that terror attack, the Pakistan saying that they had no involvement in it. And then this time, in terms of these strikes, the Indian army saying that they targeted what they describe as terrorist infrastructure. They're saying that no Pakistani military sites were hit. Is that something that in New Delhi is being accepted?
I mean, the government has maintained that this is a problem, not just.
I think we kind of get the basis of it. Somebody asked me earlier the opinion. I just think that I said in the chat, this isn't a war that I think we should be involved in. We have wars in America. We're not bombing each other. You don't see Detroit and damn Chicago going at it, right? But there is a point of saying, to be real, we gotta fix shit at home. Pay attention to what's happening in the world. You can see your neighbors fight. You hear your neighbors getting divorced. Domestic abuse. Call the cops. I'm not getting involved in that shit. Right? That needs to be we have shit we gotta take care of. But we need to also monitor the fact of, damn, this couple over here, they arguing out in the street. I think it was a drive-by 2 weeks ago. Whatever, not here, but hypothetically speaking. We gotta look at what's happening in the world and be like, damn, we on the verge of World War III? No. Somebody said this doesn't constitute as a war. That's okay. But we're gonna look at found an update from the AP. Planes that were shot down. This would be a better graphic for the people. Aircrafts reported to have crashed in Indian-controlled Kashmir. It doesn't say anything about casualties, but you see it there for what it is. And unfortunate. A lot of innocent people will die. Very unfortunate. God's plan, not ours, of course, but this is. That's why you got to be fortunate to be where you're born from, man. Wherever you're born, the generation you in, like. Let me pause this for a second. Somebody asked me earlier. The chat asked, what's it like being a black man, right? I'll say this. I'd rather be a black man today than a black man 200 years ago. I was born in the 80s. The shit I went through in the 90s and 2000s ain't shit compared to any other black man living in time. So even though I talked about my issues or issues with black men that, not even me, but people in general, right? It's a fact of like, bruh, I wouldn't want to be black in 1825 or 1925. 2025 is perfect for me. But as you see, there's a lot of damage here. But I want to get into some other stuff that we were talking about earlier. Right? That isn't just the videos, it's other shit too. Like protecting our kids. Right? I highlighted this earlier. Let me try to fix it for people on the vertical stream on YouTube. That y'all tap. Other people pop in. That. Hey, appreciate your business account. Age verification. Now, I highlighted this early on the stream. There's a major fight happening in America right now where states are banning. Excuse me. I didn't mean to burp in y'all face. That's a sweet tea. I was supposed to get water. I got sweet tea instead. States are banning social media for minors, right? And there was actually, I'll try to find it. An intense conversation between different in Florida, one of the state attorneys, right? And I actually have it on my meta frames. I'll try to see if I can get uploaded here some kind of way. Either way, he was going in because the state attorneys wouldn't expose which social media companies were allowing predators to basically prey on minors, right? And it was a very heated discussion. I had a client in town, a youth group. I had about 40 young men who traveled throughout the state to be civically engaged, and they were sitting in committee when it happened, and they were paying attention, right? And it was like, damn, we need to ban it because there are no guardrails for these apps. And that's the biggest thing. Even Washington trying to fight now is, all right, cool. I'm gonna get to this in a second, John. It's a debate. So we highlighted earlier on the stream. If you've been here the whole time, I appreciate you, Mike Lee. from Utah, and John James, 2 Republicans from Michigan. A brother, John James. Why does brother look familiar? He probably said something crazy. Either way, they filed this bill to put basically some guardrails in the App Store, because there has to be some kind of guardrails to say, all right, cool. If we stop the kids from buying the $2 apps, right? I said it earlier, early 2000s, kids were buying. iPhone came out, App Store. And next thing you know, you get a $500 bill because your niece or nephew done racked up damn $2 apps on your phone, right? There's still nothing to consent that verifies age. And that's why they've been banning Pornhub and other things, because there's websites, there's other things, even though you can watch Twitter porn, right? Whatever. There's nothing putting guardrails in place for kids when they're downloading it. And the App Store may not know the predator, but law enforcement. So this has been a bigger case to say, okay, if law enforcement is seeing the loopholes and the state attorneys and the attorney generals are seeing the loopholes in this, congressionally, they need to do something to fix it. And that's kind of this part. But then there's also a fact of the Supreme Court's hearing issues regarding social media bans, right? Let me find one while I'm talking, because I know the issue pretty well, so I don't have to go through too many notes, right? But basically, the Supreme Court is looking at basically over. I got to research better before I get on the stream next time. But either way, it's the First Amendment issue, freedom of speech. If a teenager, if a young person has social media, like, is it like cigarettes? You don't get your First Amendment rights until you turn 18, till you can vote. These young kids are basically saying, like, listen, I should be able to participate because they're kids who are depressed, who don't have friends, who go online and they have friends at other places, right? They build great camaraderie with these people. Like I'm building with y'all on YouTube. I never met none of y'all, right? Could probably not, right? But you're building a community of people. Next thing you know, somebody's preying on you. And that child doesn't know that, even though you're in your own little secluded world, that you're being preyed upon. And that ends up being an issue, right? So the federal government is trying to step up. Met as part of a new lobbying group, the Coalition of Competitive Mobile Experience, which launched last week with age verification on the App Store as one of its main policy goals. That's the biggest thing. If we can understand exactly who's buying the app, who's downloading the app from a kid and from the other user perspective, maybe they'll be able to find these criminals faster. But one I highlighted earlier, California is looking to ban one of the nation's most popular guns. Assembly Bill 1127. Let me check my stream and make sure y'all can see it. Fix this. Zoom in, zoom out, some words. Hold on, John. I didn't get to your question. I think the question is, would you rather be an American, black man, or African? I'm black man regardless. I think this is what I'll say to that, John. I grew up in a Jamaican household. I'm a first generation American. There are things taught in black American households that are not taught other black people throughout the world. It could be linked to Jim Crow. It could be linked to slavery. It could just be linked to a victim mentality, right? I think they call it black fatigue. I seen somebody say the other day on the stream. I'd rather just be a black man, period. I think that's actually two different things, because it's not just being a black man from Africa. Would you want to be a black man from any other part of the world, or would you rather be a black man from America? I'm not giving up America. I love it here. But anyway, let's get back to it. California law introduced Assembly Bill 1127 to ban semi-automatic pistols like certain Glocks that can be easily converted into machine guns using a legal attachment. The gun lobby isn't going to like this. The gun lobby is going to say, get it, we shouldn't have all this, but you're trying to take away our guns and my ability to defend my family. So if 10 people pull up on me, I need to hit the switch. Let's see this video. I sent this video here. Yeah, let's tap in and see what they were talking about.
California lawmakers introduced a bill that would ban certain machine gun convertible pistols. Gun rights advocates are calling the legislation the Glock ban bill because Glock manufactures popular pistols that can be converted into an automatic weapon using an attachment. The brand's handguns are one of the most popular in America. California's Assembly Bill 1127, introduced by Assemblymember Jesse Gabriel, would prohibit a licensed firearms dealer from selling, giving, transferring, delivering, or offering for sale or exchange any
This is one thing I preach about politically. I hate to stop it. I know y'all was watching, right? There are a lot of conversations about politics. There are a lot of conversations about new laws. And people get confused about what's out there till they get banned with a crime. If it's not in the statute to the staff analysis, it's bullshit. Remember I told you that tonight. Damn near 3 a.m. If it's not in the staff analysis or the statutes, it's bullshit. Because this is the law. This is what it looks like when you're changing statute. So let's get back to this.
Semi-automatic pistol with a cruciform trigger bar that can be readily converted by hand or with common household tools into a machine gun by the installation or attachment of a pistol converter, and thereby enables the pistol to shoot automatically more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. Glock switch technology turns semi-automatic pistols into fully automatic firearms. It's already illegal to own a machine gun without approval from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, but California bans them outright. California law also states the sale of pistol switches is illegal. The bill does not apply to law enforcement officers, military members, or current owners of Glock brand pistols. Gabriel introduced the bill 3 years after 6 people were killed and another 12 were wounded in a Sacramento shooting in which more than 100 rounds were fired from Glocks equipped with switch technology.
Wow.
Everytown for Gun Safety is in favor of the bill. In a press release, the gun control group said, for decades, Glock has known that its firearms are especially susceptible to being quickly and easily converted into illegal machine guns with just a screwdriver and a $25 switch, and refuse to do anything about it. With this new measure, California lawmakers are telling Glock and its copycats loudly and clearly that if they fail to take reasonable steps to fix this problem, to prevent these illegal conversions, they will be forced to stop selling their firearms in California. The National Association for Gun Rights opposes the measure, posting on X, California pushing rapidly towards a total ban of Glock pistols, the most popular firearm in the country. If you think there is a line they will not cross, think again. Gun rights advocate Sam Paredes, president of Gun Owners of California, told KXTV that if the bill passes the legislature and is signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom, gun rights groups will immediately file legal challenges. Glock has yet to respond to the proposed legislation.
I'll be real with you. This happens all the time. I tell folks, people ask me all the time, so you've been doing the politics thing 15 years. Why do you only focus on appropriations? I've done policy. The first, 7, 8 years of my career was straight policy and appropriations. Appropriations is getting contracts, government contracts for basically telling government to give organizations funding, right? And the biggest issue is you pass a policy, you meet with people for months and weeks and all this other shit, hours and hours of meetings. A bill passes, you know it's going to pass, you know it's going to get signed into law, just for it to be fought out in the courts. And just to eventually start this here, to maybe in the next 2 years, get it to the Supreme Court. To the super Supreme Court in DC, the main Supreme Court, because California have their own processes. that this is just be caught up in the queue, right? Which kind of gives me, I'll tap in after that because here we go. Religious charter schools. I was actually gonna end it after that last one, but I'm gonna tap out after this one. Not because I'm tired, but because I think that, you know, this is a good way to segment out. I'll get there. Again, if you've been here since we started the stream around 1 o'clock, I am a hip hop lobbyist, a professional lobbyist in the state of Florida. We've checked in on the Diddy trial today. We saw some information about that. The Trump response, if I had a stream earlier today about the Trump meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada. We didn't get to the FIFA stuff. I didn't really feel it was necessary. Plus, America's not a soccer country yet. So I'm going to stick to the facts. I'm going to stick to the issues on this stream tonight. So I appreciate y'all tapping in with the 3 a.m. vibes with me, right? So here's something that I've been talking about for the past couple of months on my TikTok and others about St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School and what's happening here. Now, religious schools across the country are able to get public resource dollars now via school vouchers. Now, if your state, like Texas has just done, Governor Abbott signed it into law, they expanded school vouchers to basically give parents an educational savings account so that they can invest in their child's education. And it stems from these different lawsuits. Now, St. Isidore, can't remember exactly where it is, but it's also the Oklahoma, I believe, yeah, it is Oklahoma. But either way, let's get into it. Supreme Court heard oral arguments April 30th about this. And this will probably be one of the biggest educational bills they're saying since Brown versus Board of Education. So, excuse me, I'm burping in y'all face tonight. I blow it out sometimes when I pause. Well, it's my wife. I had to pause that. Blow the burp out the side so it's not right in your face. Instead of my state, fuck it. This could be a huge thing because there's a major focus on Project 2025, Department of Education. The Department of Education at the federal level is one major distraction while this is happening at the state level. But the states to get to a point where the Lieutenant Governor of Oklahoma and other states are writing briefs to the Supreme Court to basically say why giving money to a parent through educational savings account isn't moving tax dollars to public dollars to private schools, because the parent's making a decision what's best for their child. That's the argument here. And my counter argument, like I said earlier, like I've been saying for maybe 6 months now, is realistically, for urban cultures and communities, we need to make sure that if they're making it more advantageous for you to open your own religious private schools, and you were adamant that they were banning African American history and books in schools, and you were going to teach our kids education about history, we'll pony the fuck up, open your own damn schools, because the rest of you saying it's bullshit from the pulpit. For the last 70 years, the court has decided dozens of cases dealing with everyday interaction between schools and their students. But now, this is a long article. I'll preview this. I'm not reading through all this shit, right? And it's not that long. I don't think this is the main one. Not all. To the main point. Private school vouchers are here. After we get over the transgender in the military issue, the tariff issue, and we really start focusing back on our kids' education, I'm going to scroll up to the top because I'm not going to roll out of this anyway, right? We'll have to realize that whether it's religious school, private school, public school, charter school, parents are going to have the option to educate their kids however they feel necessary, instead of sending their child to the neighborhood school in whatever zip code they're in. Because of that, we need leaders in our community that are going to make sure our kids are educated. And I'm not saying the Jalen Rose, LeBron James, Flo Rida. No, Flo Rida doesn't have school pit bulls. Not the entertainers. The actual people on the ground and say, you know what, you've been teaching for 20 years. You've been a principal at this school. Can you help me open mind? What do I need? Understand the infrastructure, because guess what? If they're going to do it like this, South Carolina and Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Florida. I think Tennessee or Kentucky is the only state that doesn't have charter schools in the South. That's top bullshitting. I'm not saying open up a Kanye school, but I am saying take ownership and stop the bullshit. Did I have anything else? Not for the night. Not for the night. It's just, I didn't plan on streaming this long for real. I was like, you know what, I may stream for 30 minutes and then hop off, do one thing. But then we had a lot of people here. When I checked the chat finally, I'm like, you know what, I like to stream and not check the chat. Let me make full face. There we go. I forgot where I was going. It's late night. I didn't expect this to stay on so late. Yeah, I checked the stream on my phone or whatever. iPhone. See my phone at least. And I saw it was like 300 something people here, like 1, 2 in the morning with your boy. Very humbling. Very, very humbling, right? So I appreciate it. But if you enjoyed the stream tonight, help your boy pass that 1,000. You feel me? That's it's not a goal for this. I'm just trying to reach my month. So help me get there. But anyway, if you stayed up with your boys from 1 a.m. on the East Coast, you could be on the West Coast, you could be in Africa, Australia, India, London, wherever. Be safe. Y'all have a great time. And most likely, if you're around 12 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, we're going to find some more politics to talk about if you want to talk about it. Because I got some shit. And guess what? We're going to tap in on this community and this stream and talk. That's all I got. Let me check this chat before I get up out of here. Before people judge, they need to read the Quran as well as the Bible. It grants on our dime. Okay. Money can go to a Christian school, then it can go to a Muslim school. That can happen too, Rain Talent. That most likely will happen. Sorry, I'll try to keep up. Happens if I sign up for 25,000. It's just subsidizing rich. Well, Rain, in Texas, if the school is 25,000, you're only getting 10,000. Private school, I believe 5,000 towards a charter school, and $22,000 for homeschooling. Right, so you would still have to come up with that $15,000 some way somehow, and it's just part of the game. Right? So it's there, and it's only serving roughly 100,000 kids in Texas. So it's not everybody, but it's open to everybody. But it depends on who goes first. 100,000. I like the Bible. Let me in this last poll. 48,000 people tapped in. 150. Last question. Serving the military? No. Man and woman only. 83 votes. That's powerful. Got that. That's not powerful, like in a good bad. I had some votes that were just like 18. But when it came to the transgenders, well, people were like, wait a minute. We got to vote. Y'all voted more than Kamala Harris supporters. Y'all voted more than Kamala Harris supporters. Election night, man. Finding purpose, my destiny in life. Sonny, I'm going to tell you like this. Sonny Michael, Sonny Michelle, Michael. May 22nd, 2014, 4:03 p.m. A spirit came over me and said, eliminate all distractions. I was on my phone at the time at the job I was working with. I was on Instagram, I was on Facebook, all the other stuff. I deleted all the social media apps, right? I read Rick Warren's A Purpose-Driven Life. And every day I read a chapter. And I'm like, damn, it's something about this. Like, it resonates. Like, I'm reading a chapter. And I may take a day or two to read the next one, right? I want to really grow. And I was trying to leave my job at the time. And the Spirit again said, eliminate all distractions and find your purpose. And I said, you know what? I'm going on a 40-day fast. Right. And the issue was, I think it was 43 days. No lie, because it was a random day of the week we started the fast. And started the fast. On the 41st day, I got turned down for my 5th job interview, final interview. I told God, I'm not going nowhere till you move me. I didn't cry. I just went in my office. I looked up at the sky, talked to God, because Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life taught me that you got to talk to God like he's your homeboy. And, you know, he's this higher spirit. He's a higher being, but you got to talk to God like he's your homeboy, right? Cool. So God's a homie. And I said, Lord, I'm not going nowhere till you move me. And in that moment, I realized nobody else could be me. Nobody else had my life story. Nobody else could be a first-generation born American and become a lobbyist in the 3rd largest state and be one of the youngest black lobbyists in Florida's history, being able to move government, move elected officials, and move issues for people. And I realized that I found my way. I think that to the question, and I wasn't able to put it up here because I closed my chat merge, and it's just this random question from John that's still showing. Let me disable that for the vertical stream, but for the canvas stream. I think God will help you find your way in purpose sometime. 15 years, I never wanted to do politics. Never want to run for office, SGA president, none of that shit, right? But I love what I do. I'll tell you this, I had kids, about 40 kids come in. The day before, we were supposed to have like this walkthrough with the parents. None of the parents showed up because it was business things happen, right? But what I did see was mother dropped her son off at one of our locations. Or after school, they had tests coming in, right? FSA, Florida Student Assessment Test. And the student was struggling in reading, right? And the mother dropped the son off, left him with their whatever. My bad, if the audio keeps cutting up. I'm trying to whisper, my bad, Rain, my bad. Did you, John? And C-Knows, I appreciate y'all. I saw the mother basically leave my son there, and it's like, that's what impacted. I realized that my goal in life isn't to teach the kids. My wife's a teacher. My goal is to use God's will for my life to make an impact, right? And when I saw that mother drop her kid off and realizing what I was doing, lobbying for this organization and going to get for a black kids organization at the same time they were banning books in AP African American history in Florida. We got over $500,000 for this org. That's where I realized what my purpose was. So you know what? My purpose isn't to sit here and be elected and have people praise me for access to power. God's given me the ability to make government and power and things move in a way that's bipartisan. That I'm not kissing ass. I'm not hanging up nobody nuts. So I'll say this to you as we wrap up this stream. Be you. God is going to help you find your purpose. God's going to help you find your purpose more than anything out here in the world. I'm not telling you this for no preconceived notions or whatever. Just keep your head down. Stay focused. Whether you believe in Buddha, a higher power, atheist, whatever. I believe in God. Believe in whatever drives you, because that will protect you and hold you. But what I'm going to do, go get some sleep. I appreciate y'all tapping in. I don't know if I'm over 1,000 subscribers. Actually, let's do this. Because I don't know if we're going to find 1,000 subscribers. Then I'm going to tap out for the night, right? Most likely we'll be here tomorrow. What y'all? We're at 996. 6 right. It refreshes it. Oh! I love y'all, chat. I love you. Can't see it clear. I love y'all. We had 1,003, man. We had 1,003 subscribers. We started off at 43, 47 back in October, man. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all for tapping in. But it's 3 in the morning on the east. It's gonna be up with me though. Anyway, I appreciate y'all. Sonny, I appreciate you asking the question, my brother. I appreciate all y'all on the chat. Let me try to screenshot this. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna go get some sleep. Rain, a 1003rd. I appreciate you, man. Yeah, I am a little tired, but you know I gotta keep on doing. I gotta keep on. Y'all do what y'all gotta do. Stay prayed up. God got you. I'll be with you later, man. Bet y'all tapping in with you.